Jamie Foxx finally spoke out about his health care, giving fans an update on his recovery in an official video since his April hospitalization for what his daughter Corinne called a medical complication at the time. He explained why it took so long for his fans to hear from him. "I just didn't want you to see me like that. I want you to see me laughing, having a good time, partying, cracking a joke, doing a movie, a television show. I just didn't want you to see me with tubes running out of me and trying to figure out if I was going to make it through," unquote. We wishing you all the best, Jamie, and we looking forward to seeing you out on that red carpet in a TV show soon. AFCA announced its 5th annual TV honors. The African American Film Critics Association named Best Comedy Abbott Elementary, and Jessica Williams won the Breakout Prize for her work on Shrinking. Wishing 88-year-old movie actress Brigitte Bardot the best after she suffered a breathing difficulty episode in France. Tony Bennett, the legendary crooner whose voice endured for generations, has passed away at the age of 98, just 2 weeks shy of his 97th birthday. Also passing away was Josephine Chaplin, actress and daughter of Charlie Chaplin. She died at the age of 74. She appeared with her father in his films Limelight and A Countess from Hong Kong. All Fun and Games Vertical set fall release for a horror thriller starring Natalia Dyer and Asia Butterfield. The fight continues as AMPTP disputes SAG-AFTRA's quote-unquote misleading claims about the last contract offer before the strike began. SAG-AFTRA says studios didn't quote-unquote meaningfully engage on critical issues, and studios called Guild disingenuous. AMTPT reiterates previous statements after Actors Guild details where it says negotiations broke down, and SAG-AFTRA's Duncan Crabtree Ireland rebukes AMPTP claims about its last offer before the actors' strike. We'll see how this plays out, y'all. The Documentary Workers Union ratified a groundbreaking project with the International Documentary Association. With the WGA and SAG-AFTRA members forbidden to promote their television shows and movies, the Hollywood strike went back to its roots at the San Diego Comic-Con over the weekend. The Christian Bale classic American Psycho is getting a comic book adaptation that was announced at Comic-Con over the weekend. When you go to a Broadway show, the reason you're able to see all those sets move around and that curtain open is due to the guild called IATSE. They reached a tentative deal with the Broadway League Disney Theatrical on pink contracts. Melissa McCarthy, Ben Falcone scrapped plans this past week to receive an award at Outfest in view of the actors' strike. James Badge Dale, Ben Foster, Michael Mando, Rory Cochrane, Melissa Leo, and more are set for a crime drama King Ivory, filming under a SAG interim contract. Netflix removes basic ad-free plan in the US and UK. Standard ads is now the lowest available at $6.99 a month. And YouTube hikes its premium subscription price by 17%, bringing the monthly bill to $13.99. AMC Theaters is to end its short-lived Sightline seat pricing program. The controversial experiment changed their higher prices for optimal seats and lower prices for less appealing ones. Viaplay is to lay off more than 25% of its staff as Nordic outfit mulls a sale and pulls out of the US. Canal Plus takes minority stake in Viaplay. Dune VFX firm DNEG laid off dozens in the London headquarters. Andor Season 2 shoot was cut short amid the SAG-AFTRA strike, and Zendaya's movie Challenger cancels at the Venice Film Festival as the world premiere due to the strike. Commandante is to replace Challengers as the Venice Film Festival's opening film. E1 shut down theatrical distribution in the UK. Hasbro has purchased the company in 2019 and has been trying to offload it since 2022. Indie financier Braun, which backed Joker and Licorice Pizza, filed for bankruptcy. Sofia Coppola's Priscilla is set as the New York Film Festival's centerpiece selection, and the Toronto International Film Festival set its world premiere of Adam Irigoyen's Seven Veils. The picture stars Amanda Seyfried. Tobin Bell returns to Lionsgate's bloody horror franchise Saw this September. Today on The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata, thanks to the SAG rules, I'm finally allowed to do some reviews. And today I'm going to talk about Happiness is for Beginners with Ellie Kemper and an interview with Ellie herself. We'll be reviewing Barbie, and it was a Barbieheimer weekend, as I also am going to review Oppenheimer, which I feel is one of the best films of 2023. I'll also be talking about The Deepest Breath by director Laura McGann, a documentary that is absolutely gorgeous. We'll be speaking with Justin Simien from Disney's Haunted Mansion, which is releasing this week. We'll also be talking about They Cloned Tyrone. Damn! On This Week with The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata, there's a wonderful documentary about sex workers called Kokomo City, and we're going to do all of that and more coming up right now.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all.
Yeah, you know I'm shooting straight from the hip.
This is Carla Renata, aka The Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know I'm shooting straight from the hip.
Hey, everybody. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hey, everybody. How you doing? It's your girl, Carla Renata, aka, The Curvy Film Critic. Having a hair issue. And welcome back to the channel. What we do here is we do reviews and we talk to people above and below the line in the film industry. Now, last week when I was here, I was talking about the SAG strike and how I wasn't sure what I could and couldn't do. Since that time, things have been clarified. I am allowed to post reviews that I did prior to the strike, and I'm allowed to talk about and or post my reviews about the films that I have seen or am going to see, which mostly comprise of documentaries. So having said that, the interviews that I did today were either completed prior to the strike or they were approved and completed. So just want to give that disclaimer. If this is your first time joining me, give me a big thumbs up to let me know you were here. If you are on the YouTube, click that bell for notifications and subscribe to the channel, baby, because you never know what I'm going to be doing over here. Okay? Okay. So what I usually do is I usually talk about what I did the week before. So last night, I went to something that the Music Center here in Los Angeles calls Summer Sound Waves. And every city has something that you can do for free, right? There's always a lot of fun. And when I tell you they got it all the way in, when I got to see my girl, Umu Sangare, perform. She is an artist from Mali, and she turned the Music Center Plaza out, baby. And sitting next to me on my left was Academy Award winner Camille Friend. Now, if you don't know that name and you don't know that face, Camille won the Oscar for doing the hair and makeup on Black Panther. I also popped through Outfest to support my girlfriend NECA. So NECA is an Emmy winner for Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls, Look Out for the Big Girls, whatever it is called The Big Girls. And I went to support her and watched her documentary. It's called Truth Be Told. Be on the lookout for that soon. Then I popped on over to the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, where outgoing President Frederick was there speaking about some things regarding Howard University, the alumni, supporting the school, supporting the new president. He popped off some numbers that were very, very interesting and engaged the alumni that was in the house with some questions and whatnot. And of course, I was invited by fellow Bison Sonia Lockett, who's pictured there with me, and Miss Debbie. And I just have to show you this. In the lobby of Dada is beautiful, beautiful artwork by so many different people. But I just had to show you this one with Miss Debbie that shows most of her career on that one thing. And I love the little theater lights at the top. It's fantabulous. I also, prior to the strike and was approved to do a Q&A on Kokomo City, which is another documentary about sex workers. And I spoke to Dee Smith for a Q&A with Film Independent. I also did another Film Independent Q&A with Laura McGann, who is the filmmaker of The Deepest Breath, which I'll talk about in a minute. And today, like I said, we're going to do a review of Happiness is for Beginners with Miss Ellie Kemper, my St. Louis homie. We're going to talk about They Cloned Tyrone. Oh, let me just show you this other picture of Laura. Isn't she fabulous? We're going to talk about Barbie, of course, which I never got a chance to really talk about. We're going to talk about Oppenheimer, and we're going to talk about Haunted Mansion. Those are all the things that we will be talking about today on the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. So let's get right into it. Let me talk about Barbie first and foremost. Do I have any Barbie paraphernalia up here? I do not. So Barbie is directed by Greta Gerwig, is co-written with her husband Noah Baumbach, and it is not what you think it is. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're thinking about taking some little girls to this movie is not for anybody that is under 13 years old. It is not a fluffy light comedy. It's a deep little comedy. So basically what happens is Barbie and Ken are having the time of their lives in Barbie Land. They're having parties and carrying on, honey. And it's seemingly perfect there in Barbie Land, right? But then when they get a chance to go out into the real world, they soon discover the joys and the perils of living among humans. This is a very mature, natured film. Again, do not take anybody that is under 13. The dialogue is witty by Gerwig and Baumbach. They give props to the inventor of Barbie, who invented Barbie in 1959. Her name is Ruth Handler. And it is an overblown funny film, not funny, but it is an overblown film full of fun with a feminist twist, a really harsh feminist twist. I mean, the opening alone, which you saw in the interview that I did with Greta last week, talking about the Barbie dolls and tearing off their heads and stomping all over them, because that image is outdated. But a lot of people seem to love the movie. A lot of people loved America Ferrera's monologue that she gives, which is fire. And I'm trying not to give too much away about it, but that is the gist of it. And basically, there's lots of stars, there's lots of pink. It's a feminist twist, like I said, with a real living embodiment of Barbie and what she would look like in the 21st century. That is Barbie. It's in theaters right now. Now, I want to go on and talk about Kokomo City because I love this film. I saw this film at Sundance and was riveted by it. It is a film that deals with the sex working industry. And one of the documentary subjects, she passed away. And so they dedicate the film to her, Miss Coco. They dedicate the film to her. But I had an opportunity for Film Independent to speak with the director and the writer right there, Miss Dee Smith. This is her first film. This is her feature debut, well, not feature, but her documentarian debut. And it's a deep little film. It deals with so many different subjects. It's going to be in theaters by Magnolia Pictures, and Dee Smith did everything. She filmed it in black and white, which I always think is brilliant when somebody films something in black and white, because you have a tendency, because us as audience, when we see color, we're like, ooh, there's a color there, ooh, there's a color there, ooh, look at that costume. But when it's in black and white, you have to focus on the narrative at hand, right? I love that she did that. And what she does is she expresses and sheds a light on the trans community beautifully, and the dangers that therein lie for sex workers in that industry. One of the other things that she talks about, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, one of the characters talks about how there's so much vitriol and negativity going toward the trans community. As a matter of fact, I saw something on Instagram toward my sister T.S. Madison. There was another person online who shall remain nameless because I don't like to give people like that a platform. But this person went on and talked about T.S. Madison and talked about how real women have periods and that kind of thing. And, it's hard enough for women out here, especially Black women. We don't need to be throwing hate on each other. Like, that's not cool. And so that brings me to, not only does Kokomo City shed a light on things like that about Black women and other women hating on the trans community, but they also shed a light on the fact that why some Black women may shed hatred toward the trans community. And they talk about it from a vantage point of Black women give birth to Black men, right? And so when you are a Black woman and you give birth to a Black man, and then that man comes to you, or that child or that young boy comes to you and says, I don't feel like a man. I feel more in tune with my feminine side. Black women almost always react negatively to that because there is a fear of losing this Black man in their life that they think or feel will be some type of protection for her as she gets older. And when I tell you, when one of the subjects of the documentary said that, that was real. That was a real feeling, and I felt that in my soul. I highly suggest y'all watching Kokomo City. It is very enlightening on the trans community, and it is educational to say the least. It's all of that and then some. The Deepest Breath by Laura McCann. Now, I showed you who Laura McCann was, but this film right here, it is so deep. It's directed by Laura. It went into theaters on, or maybe I think it started streaming on July 19th. Let me not start the line. But it's a thrilling documentary that tells the story of a champion freediver, Alessia Zakeni, and an expert safety diver, Stephen Keenan, who were fated to meet at the height of their careers. It captures a gripping mix of destiny and danger at the heart of these two athletes' undeniable bond, and offers a never before seen glimpse into one of the most dangerous sports in the world. Now, I don't want to say anything else about it because I don't want to spoil it for you. It is beautifully shot. It's mostly done underwater. It's mostly telling the story of Alessia and Stephen, how they met, how their love of the ocean was fostered individually, and how that love of the ocean that was fostered individually brought them together. And then ultimately, one of them loses their life. I won't say which one it is, but watch the documentary and find out. It's hands down one of my favorite documentaries of the year. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and it brings to light the question of, when you lose someone that you love, people always talk about that person living on in your heart and your mind and your spirit. But what Stevens says to Alessia, he says, live your life and be happy. That is the best gift you could ever give anyone that you love, is to tell them to live their life and be happy, regardless of which one of you perishes first. That is the best gift that could ever be given. Again, it's called The Deepest Breath, and it is directed by Laura McCann. Now, the Q&As that I did that were approved, and I spoke to SAG about it, they can both be seen on the filmindependent.org website. Film Independent. The conversations with Laura McGann for The Deepest Breath and Miss D. Smith from Kokomo City. And when I was doing that Kokomo City Q&A, I was like, what are your pronouns? Because I don't want to get it wrong. I'm so confused with that, but I'm trying to be better. All right. Having said that, let's get into, let me tell you this before we move on. I had said last week I will give these tickers. So because we are in a SAG strike, and I am SAG, and I am a proud SAG after a union card member, I wanted to make sure that somewhere throughout the show that I told people how to get help. So SAG after strike at sagaftra.org. I tried to correct that, but it didn't correct it for some reason for me. Let me see if I can correct it again. I tried to correct it and it didn't correct it for me. Let's see. if I save it and it corrects this time. Yes, it did. Okay. So SAG After Strike at sagafter.org. You can get any information regarding emergency relief from there. You can also get information from the SAG Foundation, SAG After Foundation. You can go there to get financial relief if you are in trouble. You can also go to the Motion Picture Television Fund, mptf.com, and get some assistance there, and entertainmentcommunity.org, which used to be the Actors Fund. So the Actors Fund has renamed itself to entertainmentcommunity.org. All of these organizations are there to help. I'll put them up again. This is entertainmentcommunity.org, which used to be, was just formerly the Actors Fund. This is mptf.org. This is SAG After Foundation. And last but not least, SAG After Strike at sagafter.org. These are all the organizations that you can get help from during this time. All right. I hope that is helpful for those who are SAG After members that watch this podcast. And I know there's a lot of you that do. So I just wanted to put that up there and give you some love. All right. They cloned Tyrone. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy movie. It's crazy, crazy as hell. It stars Teyonah Parris, Jamie Foxx, and Oscar winner John Boyega, Oscar winner Jamie Foxx. I wanted to talk to y'all about this film because it is so many, it's so many things. But what it really is it's like a throwback to those old 70s movies, you know, where people dress in really fly ways, have really fly hair. Baby, there's a eat chicken scene in there where they eat some chicken. It's so funny. It's really funny, but it's dealing with the subject of, it's like a bunch of series of eerie events that is thrust on to this particular trio onto the trail of a nefarious government conspiracy. And the director actually said that the story was done only after he created the character of Fontaine. It was based on a friend who was arrested back in college and how the experience completely changed his life. It is hilarious in the weirdest way possible because Tyrone gets cloned and it's just a whole situation going on. But it's fun. And baby, right now, dealing what we dealing with in life, we need some fun, okay? Um, and I just want to say this: do y'all may not remember, but there was a time when President Nixon was president when he said that they have cloning operations all over the United States. Do y'all remember when Nixon said that? I don't remember when Nixon said that, but when I was doing research to write this review, I found that out. So I'm gonna dig into that a little deeper, and I'll put that in the review. And as always, all of my reviews can be found on Rotten Tomatoes and or my own site, thecurvyfilmcritic.com. Thecurvyfilmcritic.com, and that's curvy, Curvy, not Curvey. If I had somebody spell curvy wrong one more time, I'm just gonna lose my mind. It's like, how do you not know how to spell curvy? Anyway, I digress. But that is They Clone Tyrone. It's directed and written by Jewel Taylor and screenplay by Tony Rittenmeyer. And like I said, it stars Jamie Foxx, Teyonah Parris, and John Boyega. And congratulations to Teyonah. I believe I heard through the grapevine that she just had a little nugget. So congratulations on your little nugget. Yay. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about this film called Happiness. Where is it? Happiness. Talk about this Ellie Kemper film. So as you see, it's a film where folk are going hiking. Now you notice that it ain't a whole bunch of black people in there, but the film is called Happiness is for Beginners. And if you look to the far left, you'll see my superstar friend Nico Santos in there. Baby, this film, it was so funny. So basically, Ellie Kemper's character is having a little bit of a midlife crisis. She's getting divorced. She needs a new start, and she decides that she's going to go hiking for the first time. Never been hiking. It's funny, but it's a love story all at the same time. So it ends up being like this funny rom-com. She goes hiking. She ain't never had hiking boots. She gets brand new hiking boots. She ain't broke them in. she's having a situation with the backpack. Like it's just pure comedy. Ellie is hilarious. And she's my St. Louis homie. But the really funny thing about it is she ends up falling in love with this young man who actually is a friend of her little brother's. Just sit with that for a minute. So it's like a May December rom-com set in a hiking situation outside. I'll just let you sit with that for a minute. But when I talked to Ellie, we talked about St. Louis. We talked about, hiking, and we talked about so many other things. So without further ado, here's a look and a listen to this pre-taped, pre-done interview with Ellie Kemper for Happiness is for Beginners. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Carla. How are you?
I'm good now that I'm talking to my St. Louis homie.
Yes.
Yes, honey, I went to Rittner. You went, what school did you go to?
It's so funny. We all ask each other that. Right? John Burroughs.
John Burroughs, okay.
Yeah.
And my brother went to I think he went to Hazelwood East or Hazelwood West. I don't remember.
I know. No, there's too many. There's so many schools in St. Louis. I'm like, wait, I thought that was just like in New York and LA, there are a bunch of schools. Are you in St. Louis now?
No, I'm in LA. Yeah. But that's a St. Louis thing where I was like, what school did you go to?
Immediately. That's what I said. I was like, oh, right. Why no one from any other city does that. It's a St. Louis.
No, just us. So I just want to say this was a really special film because it deals with so many different issues in life, right?
Yep.
So are you based in LA?
I'm in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were in LA, right. When you were in LA, did you succumb to the whole hiking thing? You know how people come to LA and they all want to go hiking? Did you?
Because I know exactly what you're talking about. I would go for quote unquote hikes in is it Runyon Canyon?
Runyon Canyon.
Runyon Canyon and Griffith Park. I would go up to the Griffith Observatory, but that hardly felt like hiking because it was so populated. It just felt like if you want to get away, I think you'd have to drive further. But I did my share of like urban hikes. Yeah.
That is hilarious. Now I understand that there was a crazy day of shooting where you guys just kept breaking up when you put the hat over Nico's face when he was on the gurney, the makeshift gurney.
Yep. Okay, I want to know your source because that was so funny. So we had to cover Nico's face because, am I revealing the smoke and mirrors? We were carrying a dummy for a large part of it because a dummy is lighter. And so therefore we had to hide the face. But you get in that giddy mode of, anything, but in this situation, filming. And we were also giddy from filming all day, and I kept dropping the hat on his face, like in a weird way. Really? This is how we're handling a man who's like passed out and being carried on a gurney? We're just throwing a hat on his face. It's just one of those, and then once you start laughing, you can't stop. It's a chain effect, and especially when you're supposed to be serious. Like if it's at church or a meeting or filming a movie, then forget it. You can't stop giggling.
It's a wrap. It's
fun.
A wrap. So you used to write for a publication called The Onion, right?
Yes.
So if you were going to write an article based on Helen's experience for The Onion, what would you title it?
Oh my gosh. That's hard because I'm trying to think of what a satirical take on a woman finding happiness in the wilderness would be. Woman on self-discovery hike discovers tick instead. I don't know. I'm riffing here. It needs to be
discovers tick.
I don't know. Luckily, no ticks. I don't think anybody got a single tick during our whole wilderness excursion.
That is hilarious. And just in closing it out, I just want to know: did you ever go to Silver Dollar City?
Carla, I've never been to Silver Dollar. Is that crazy? I've never been there. I've never.
Ellie Kemper, how you gonna be from St. Louis and never go to Silver Dollar City? Y'all didn't go on field trips there?
Nope. We went to Hannibal to see Mark Twain stuff, but we never went. I was just thinking, I have 2 kids, and I was like, the next time we go to visit, because I still have family in St. Louis, the next time we go to visit, I have to make that field trip.
You're gonna have to. That's just like me never being in the Arch.
You've never been up in the arch, and then we're even in that case. I have been up in the arch. It's fun.
Yeah, I went one time. That was enough.
Okay, no, it's high. It's very high up.
I can't. But that is my time. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. It was really great, and you're lovely. And I really, really enjoyed the film.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, and it was a pleasure talking to you. St. Louis.
Pleasure speaking with you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye, Carla. Thank you.
Y'all, I don't know why the second half of that interview, the syncing was off. That was crazy. I don't know why that happened. But anywho, thank you, Ellie. It was nice to meet you too. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about this Haunted Mansion. There's been a lot of drama around Haunted Mansion. Folk was coming for Justin, talking about he's scabbing, being on the red carpet. And let's be clear, the Directors Guild got their deal. They went to the board, and not the board, but they went to this light is giving me the rah-rahs today. Their guild got their deal together, and it happened pretty quickly. So he was not scabbing, y'all. He was just there representing the film because nobody else could represent the film. And to be clear, I'm not scabbing either. So I don't want anybody coming for me because my stuff was approved, like I've said numerous times during the show, before I came up here and talked about it. Okay. Now, having said that, Haunted Mansion is a Disney film. It's based, the narrative is based on a ride that they have at Disney World and Disneyland, right? And now they've taken this ride and they've turned it into a film. This isn't the first time they've had the Haunted Mansion in a film version, but this particular film version centers around this woman and her son who move into this mansion that happens to be haunted. They enlist a motley crew of people, of so-called spiritual experts, to help rid the home of the supernatural squatters. It stars Tiffany Haddish, Lakeith Stanfield, Danny DeVito, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Rosario Dawson, right? The film is silly, it's campy, with its take on the supernatural while embracing the ghost culture that thrives in the New Orleans community, as you'll see throughout the film. And the most important thing that I particularly loved about it is that it deals with how grief can empower somebody or paralyze them. Because when you lose someone, you're either empowered by losing that person, or you're paralyzed by that grief, and you just can't move forward physically, emotionally, or anything. And that actually was the most powerful thing about that film to me. But it was silly. I'm not gonna lie. It was really silly. There were some parts where I actually jumped, but you know, I'm a lightweight when it comes to anything that has like a horror thriller thing happening. I actually did jump. So sad, but I did. But having said that, I'm gonna let Justin Simien tell you a little bit more about it, because he can tell you more than I ever could. So take a look and a listen to this interview with director of Haunted Mansion, Justin Simien. Hey, Justin.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
It is good to see you. I don't think I've actually seen you since your beginning with Dear White People during the LA Film Festival. That's how long ago it's been. And I've seen you grow exponentially since then. So it's good to see you under these circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
So you have some history in New Orleans?
I do. Yeah, I'm from Houston. But my mom's side of the family is from Louisiana. And we would, basically every weekend and most summers, that's where I would spend my time. And, we ironically, New Orleans is the city we drove to and flew out from when my mom took me to Disney World, and so I spent a lot of time in New Orleans, spent a lot of time in different cultural pockets of Louisiana. And when I came on board the film, I was like, there's two things about New Orleans that I would love to see incorporated in the ride, but just are kind of a must for me if I'm going to do this, which is one, we have to honor the fact this is a very black place, and New Orleans in particular is a black city, is 85% black. And the other side of it is that like this culture here is so unique because it is infused with, black culture, but specifically, there was this time in New Orleans where like you had free people of color building wealth and building these homes and building like a life in a society that kind of has been erased from time. And I don't know, I just felt like if we do that justice, if we incorporate that stuff in the movie, and not to preach or anything, but like just literally show what's there. I felt like we were already telling the story of this mansion and of this ride in a much more authentic way. So that was pretty important for me. That was like a North Star. That was definitely one of those things that made me excited to do the movie.
You already answered my question for me. Thank you, Justin. You making my job easy today. Now, grief is a staple in this narrative film, and grief is a very powerful and manipulative emotion that can empower or paralyze you. And for Ben, it's a little bit of both, right?
Yes.
Ben being played by Oscar nominee Lakeith Stanfield. Has that been the case during loss for you? And which one of those, either the empowering or the paralyzation, did the spirit lean into you?
Well, it's funny. I thought, and Lakeith and I have talked about this a lot. There's something radical about putting a Black male movie hero, whose whole journey hinges upon his ability to feel difficult emotions. That is not something I see very often. And then he goes on to be a father figure for this little Black kid that he doesn't have to be, and that you kind of get the sense he never actually got himself. I thought that was really radical and powerful, and that was definitely like a driver to make this. And in my own life, when I read the script, written by Katie Dippold, who had certainly introduced this idea of grief into the film, I just saw myself. I mean, this was like 2020, 2021. I was dealing with a lot of grief. We were in COVID. We were in, coming out of the so-called racial reckoning, the very short-lived racial reckoning. Things were going well on the outside, but I was dealing with a lot of loss. I lost my father as a kid. Death is something I had to contend with a lot as a kid. And I did something very similar to Ben, in that I created this sort of dry, sarcastic, everything's cool kind of outer persona that allowed me to just kind of bypass some really hard feelings. And I found myself crying reading the script and seeing the story about a man who shows his bravery by sitting still and feeling his feelings. I was really touched by that story. I was really moved by that story. And I felt like, wow, what a wild departure for me to put that kind of story out there into the world.
Speaking of which, putting stories out there into the world, are you a fan of the supernatural? Has that been something that piqued your interest along the way in this journey called life?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember seeing Nightmare on Elm Street at a very young age with my Aunt Zora. I started with my last movie, Bad Hair. Actually, I started with my series, Dear White People, but definitely with Bad Hair, very intentionally kind of calling upon my ancestors and people who were no longer with me to partner with me in my storytelling. And whether or not that is literally happening or it's just my mind, it doesn't really matter. But it felt important that, telling stories from people who can't tell them themselves, like there's something about that I need to do as a storyteller, and that feels right. And so, yeah, it was kind of in my wheelhouse. And when I went there, I kind of doubled down on my woo-woo. I've got crystals everywhere normally, but I really went nuts.
Wow.
Started shooting this movie. I bought crystals like almost every weekend. They were all around me on the set, and they were, I gave them to the actors. Because I think like what's so special about this movie and about, the Haunted Mansion is that, like, yeah, life is hard. Yes, life has loss. Yes, there's grief. But there's also this other thing about life that we can't quite put our finger on. It is a little bit bigger than it seems. And it's a little more complicated than maybe it feels. And somehow like that helps me get through really tough moments is remembering life is just a bit beyond what I can see, especially when I'm in a dark place. And I don't know, those things are important to me. Those are things that I think about and would incorporate into my work, whether or not it was this.
Okay. And just to lighten it up a little bit and closing it out, if you had to create your own type of haunted mansion, what would that look like?
Ooh, that's really good. I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm starting to get it. Starting to get a vision. You know what? You know what? Who's really been drawing my imagination? I saw a movie called The Descendant. It came out a couple years ago. It's a documentary about
I remember that.
yeah, the discovery of the Clotilde, a slave ship, and it's a great documentary. It's a sad story. It's a lot of things, but it also kind of captured my imagination. There's so much that Black people built and did and brought to America that is literally buried under the surface, under the sea, which is an ironic way to put it, I guess. I want to explain. I don't know exactly what the house is or where it is, or if it's a house or if it's a ship or what it is. But I would love to personally explore, artifacts of Black people, things that we built that are currently buried or covered up. There's something about that that's really pulling at me right now. And so it's a weird way to answer your question. I don't know that I did it right.
You did. Listen, there is no right or wrong way to answer a question. It's just your questions and answers are about opinions on both ends. And I think you did fabulous. So it's all good.
Yeah, I want to see what's under the surface of some things that we built.
I got you.
Yeah.
Justin Simien, thank you so much for taking time out to speak with me today. I appreciate you.
Of course.
I'm a fan of your work and I always support you and will continue to do so moving forward.
Thank you. You look wonderful. It was great to see you.
Ditto. Bye.
Bye.
So you guys, that's it. But before I get to what I reviewed and again tell you where you can find those written reviews, I want to talk to Brandon because Brandon's always here for me. He said the school's going pretty well. He has another session tomorrow and he's doing more of his web comic and making a digital art version of his pitch Bible for his cartoon pitch. He is also getting tickets for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Ooh, that was a mouthful. They showed the first 20 for the movie at San Diego Comic-Con and it's already getting buzz. I've heard that. That's what I said. Glad to see you. And he also said, San Diego Comic-Con is great. So far, the Mutant Mayhem panel, new Tiny Toons theme song, Invincible Season 2. Thank you, Brandon, for always popping in and saying some things to your sister. So just to recap, I talked about Kokomo City, which is a Magnolia Pictures film directed by D. Smith. I talked about The Deepest Breath, which is directed by Laura McCann, and those Q&As with Laura and D. Smith can be found at Film Independence website. I also talked about, did I talk about Oppenheimer? I didn't talk about Oppenheimer, did I? Okay, I'm gonna do that in a minute. I talked about Haunted Mansion, but let me talk about Oppenheimer. I'm sorry, y'all. I thought I had talked about Oppenheimer. I'm a mess. So let me talk about Oppenheimer. This is a film that is directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Cillian Murphy, Florence Pugh, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., and Matt Damon. Now, during World War II, Lieutenant General Leslie Groves Jr. appointed a physicist, J. Robert Oppenheimer, to work on the top secret Manhattan Project. Oppenheimer and a team of scientists spend years developing and designing the atomic bomb. Their work comes to fruition on July 16, 1945, as they witness the world's first nuclear explosion, forever changing the course of history. Now, I'm going to come back on camera and talk about this because I just have to say, Christopher Nolan's films are kind of hit or miss for me, if I'm being honest. And they're usually full of lots of tricks and gizmos and gimmicks and things. But what I will say about this film is that him doing this film from Robert Oppenheimer's point of view is very, very interesting and very telling. And I dare say that this is probably Christopher Nolan's career best cinematic masterpiece. And I know people hate using that word masterpiece, but this really is a masterpiece. Cillian Murphy, who plays the title role, Emily Blunt, who plays his wife, Robert Downey Jr. All three of these people are giving you performances that will blow your freaking head off. They are magnificent in every sense of the word. And Matt Damon is right up in there with them. You know, I always talk about Matt Damon. I love me some Matt Damon. But having said that, it was from Oppenheimer's point of view, I would have loved to have seen more context regarding the bombing of Japan, the bombing of Hiroshima, other than like a couple of lines of dialogue here and there. I mean, the whole thing about the atomic bomb is that Japan was bombed, and Oppenheimer is the person who came up with the scientific formula to create that bomb. Now, I know that this is from his point of view, but come on, I'm just saying, had to say that. Other than a few little throwaway lines, we could have got a little bit deeper into that. There is this one scene, and this won't spoil anything for you, but there's a scene where Cillian and he's not in an interrogation, but he is in a hearing, and he's completely naked. And I think that that says so much about this man in this moment in time with this particular situation, because there he was in front of this panel of his peers, and he was trying to be openly honest and be as transparent as possible. Him being naked in that scene drives that point home 5,000%. And what I will also say about this film is that it is a huge, huge film that beckons and harkens to choices. The choices of a scientist, the choices of a government, the choices of the powers that be to use people in science for their own personal gain and then discard them like they're yesterday's trash. That is all that I got from Oppenheimer, and it's 3 hours long. It don't need to be 3 hours long, but it's 3 hours long, and it's one of those films you're probably gonna have to see it again, but it is just mind blowing, and it's such a great film, such a great film. I was really fortunate that I had an opportunity to see it, and let me be clear: I saw the film because I review films, not because I'm scabbing. So let me just say that one more time for the people in the back. My job is to review films. There was a piece of information that was put out by SAG saying that if you are a film critic or it is your job to review films, you can continue doing so. I'm just putting that disclaimer on here because I know some folk are going to come for me. So, having said that, I talked about all of the films. I told you what they were. And next week, I'm going to talk about a film called Shortcomings, which stars, this is Randall Park isn't it? Is he in it? I can't remember. But Randall Park is directing this film. I know that. And I have him in the cast of Shortcomings, which is a Sony Pictures classic. And then moving forward, you know, depending on how this strike evolves and moves and grooves, I will move and groove right along with it, following their guidelines, because like I said, I am a card holding union member, and I do not want to do anything or instigate anything that will jeopardize my membership in the guild, because that membership in the guild has allowed me to make a living. So I just wanted to say that we'll probably shift, like I said last week, do some more Kirby classics, have some conversations with some people that I haven't had conversations with before about some other things that are film related, but not necessarily talking about a film. So I'm getting that together and getting it together for you guys. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode of The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Again, if this is your first time joining me, give me a big thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications and subscribe to the channel. If you are on YouTube, if you are watching this via Twitter or LinkedIn, thank you so much for tuning in once again. I appreciate you. It's always lovely to have people support your work and support you as a Black female film critic in this space. I love what I do, and I love bringing you film news as we move further along into the process, okay? So stay safe, enjoy your summer, enjoy your summer. We got one life to live, baby. This is it. Take the most advantage of it as you possibly can. And until the next time, I'll see you next week. Love, peace, and hair grease. Deuces.